We're joined by author and editor George Marlin. He was executive director of the Port Authority during the administration of New York Governor George Pataki. He is now chairman of the Philadelphia Trust Company. He's also a writer and author. His new book is entitled Narcissist Nation, Reflections of a Blue State Conservative. Welcome to Newsmax, George.
Thanks for having me.
As we see on the cover, the book has a caricature of President Obama staring at his own reflection lovingly in a pool of water below the Lincoln Memorial. While it's probably self-explanatory, please let's hear your description of what that cover is intended to convey.
Well, the title itself is Narcissist Nation, and I believe this has been a nation that has had elites for its entire history who believe they are superior to the rest and should be running things. They should be the collective managers of America. And we've seen it with the Federalists, with Alexander Hamilton, John Adams. Historically, we've seen this go on, but I think this generation of elitists I define as narcissists, and I think the narcissist in chief is the President of the United States. He is the classic example of narcissism running a nation, and a nation he's running into the ground at the moment. So a picture of Obama, who uses the I word more than I think all presidents have used it collectively in the 200 and some odd years of our nation. I think having him gazing into a pool of water of himself outside the Lincoln Memorial is quite appropriate. I think it's a very fine jacket cover, and the artist did a terrific job.
Did Obama's narcissism develop during his upbringing, or was he influenced by his terrorist friends such as Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dohrn?
Well, I think he was greatly influenced, particularly by Bill Ayers, who I introduced him to the elite intellectual, so-called intellectual world of Hyde Park, Chicago. You know, Mr. Obama is a man who really never had a real job until he became President of the United States, but he had adoring crowds in Hyde Park that would sit there and hang on every word. And he basically lectured people and assumed when he finished talking that you were convinced he was right and the waters would part as he told us and everything else. So he grew up in his adult life, in that elitist world where they believe one another's bombastic and empty rhetoric and think they have the answers to all the questions. They're like the ancient Gnostics who believe they have the secret knowledge to run the world. And he had this adoring crowd around him. Community organizers don't work. They don't do much. They sit and talk all day long. So all his life, he just talked. And that's why as president, he prefers to be disappearing from the White House, talking a lot, using the I word, playing golf, because he's not used to sitting behind a desk, being an executive, and making executive decisions. That's why he's deferred so much to the Congress and let them make the disastrous decisions we have. So he's a classic elitist who, as usual, elitists tend to talk a lot, and that's exactly what he does.
George, can Obama ever break out of that mindset?
As we look at the third year of his presidency, I think he is incapable of it. Some prominent Democrats in New York have told me he is the classic college professor who just wants a lecture and cannot break out of that ideological shell. He believes that he could take an ideological square and put it into a circle. And it just doesn't work. But obviously his jobs plan that he came down with the other day is just more of the same. So I don't think he's capable of making the leap to some practical solutions that can help get the jobs market going, get this economy going. So I think he's condemned to failure by his own ideological change.
George, another sentence from your book: the ideological formulas of these elites may vary, but their ends have been the same, the domination of the common man. That almost sounds like a description of Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, Kim Jong-il, or Fidel Castro, doesn't it?
Well, I have a chapter on elites which I call narcissist elites, on Mao and Fidel Castro and others, but obviously there are extremists who take their ideological beliefs that goes from the Jacobins in the French Revolution through the Stalinists. Lenin believed that terror is the only answer, kill anybody who gets in your way so we can impose our ideological formulas that have nothing often to do with reality. So yes, we've seen extremists taken to the end, ideologues who bow at the altar of their ideologies and have been responsible for the deaths of the murder of tens of millions of people. We don't see those extremes in the United States, I'm happy to report. But nevertheless, we see extremism in the sense that they believe their formulas must work, even though they are abstractions that have nothing to do with reality, and they will force them down our throats, as the Obama administration has done on their economic answers, on their Obamacare answers. Even though these are failing and condemned to failure, that doesn't matter to them. They know better, and if you just throw more money at the problem, Paul Krugman of the New York Times tells us every day, spend more stimulus money, we didn't spend enough. They can never admit they're wrong, and so they will push the envelope in this nation to the point that the government will go fiscally broke.
Words you quote from Lincoln's Gettysburg Address: government by the people. Now, you say the narcissist elite use that merely as a slogan to humor the masses. Please explain what you mean by that.
Oh, they do indeed. If you look at the extreme left elites in this nation, if you read the New York Review of Books and other periodicals along those lines, they really don't have much use for democracy anymore because they're afraid that people will not vote their way. So they sort of bite away at the democratic process by imposing upon us a managerial state where agencies in the state of New York, for instance, bureaucracies in Washington, basically rule things by going around the ballot box. The most dangerous thing that the Obama administration is doing is they're filling up government agencies, government bureaucracies all over the United States and federal offices with like-minded people who will be running the administrative state, which really, as we look at the regulations, what he cannot get done through the Congress, through a democratically elected Congress, he is trying to do administratively. So if the ballot box doesn't go their way, they will dismiss it as wrong and then try to create their ideological formula, or to implement their ideological formulas by the administrative state. So yes, indeed, they use bureaucracy to sort of smother the voter.
All right, shifting gears a bit, which members get the prize for the biggest narcissists in Congress?
Well, when we look at the Nancy Pelosi's of the world and we look at some of the extremist Democrats that were elected to Congress in 2008, I think Nancy Pelosi, being a San Francisco elitist, personifies that. She is a woman who has very little understanding of government, didn't even understand Obamacare when it was passed. If you remember, she made that famous statement, "Oh, we'll figure out what's in it after we pass it."
We have to pass it to see what's in it, right?
Yeah, this is a classic ideologue who is not interested in the practicalities or the costs of a program or its impact. It's let's take our abstract formulas, let's implement them, and worry about the impact later. They were very smart in their objective to get things done. They understood they have a short window when you get into power, that the wind could change rapidly, as it did. So they forced a lot down our throats. So when we talk about an ideological elitist and narcissist in the Congress, I think Nancy Pelosi, coming from like Hyde Park, Chicago, and like the Upper East Side of Manhattan, she comes from the chic San Francisco, where they just talk to themselves and live in a ideological bubble. So I think she is the poster child for narcissism in Congress.
Again, the name of the book, Narcissist Nation, Reflections of a Blue State Conservative. George Marlin, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.